good.
Hi, everyone. It's Laura from SLP Mommy of Apraxia and Jordan from Fighting for My Voice, My Life with Verbal Apraxia, back again because we're finding so many young adults who are brave and sharing their story. And today we're going to introduce you to two other ones. If Jason, I'll have you go first.
Hi, my name is Jason. I am 27. I was born with speech apraxia and a learning disability.
Thank you, Jason. And Heather?
I'm Heather. I'm the old one in the group. I'm 35, and I realized I had apraxia much later in life, but after my daughter was diagnosed.
Which is a fascinating story that I can't wait to hear. So, and then Jordan, you just want to do a brief intro?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Jordan. I'm 23 years old and I have verbal apraxia. And as you guys know, I run the blog Fighting for My Voice.
Awesome. And I thought it was funny in the previous Zooms, Jordan had just turned 22 to 23 and all of your readers were calling you out on the fact you kept saying you were 22.
People got mad. People were like, Jordan, this isn't true now.
I know. That's when you know they know a lot about your life now. Okay. So our first question, Jordan took reader questions from his page and we kind of made a little agenda. And so the first question that we had, if you all could speak to this, is what resources are there for adults and young adults with apraxia?
And this is where we can all laugh. This is a funny topic.
Oh, I mean, it's funny, but not funny. So,
Yeah,
Jason, what resources, how did you find Jordan? Were you involved in any other community before this?
Actually, how I found Jordan was on Facebook. I was looking up people with speech apraxia because one of my goals in life is to help people with apraxia and people who've been through the stuff I've been through. And I was looking, and then I found him. And then I went to YouTube, found him on YouTube, and then ever since that, I followed him and stuff.
And was that your first meeting with, or first knowing that there was other people out there with apraxia that had grown up with it like you?
I knew people grew up with it, but it was the first time actually hearing someone else with it, with apraxia.
That's powerful. Heather, how about you? You said you found out when your child was born. So, how did that happen?
My entire life, people always question my voice. I always questioned my voice. I didn't speak until I was 6, 7 years old. My mom thought that was normal. Whenever I asked my mom, why do people bully me or pressure me or ask me questions about my voice, she always said, oh, it's because you moved to different states. And I didn't. I always stayed in the same area. So I never understood that, but she was my mom. So I kind of, believed her and didn't know much more. My daughter was diagnosed with apraxia when she was 2 years old. And after reading about it, I decided to get the genetic testing done along with seeking my own speech therapist and getting the assessment done that way. And sure enough, I even called my old speech therapist. I was in speech therapy from the time I was in preschool until I was in 5th grade. And I called her and said, my brother's the same way. He also has a little bit of a different voice than everyone else. And she recognized us right away and was like, yeah, if apraxia had been a diagnosis around the time that you guys were in speech therapy, you definitely would have been diagnosed with it. I'm at an age where apraxia was pretty new when I was a kid. And so I think a lot of it was they didn't know what it was. And so there would have not been a diagnosis at that time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for those that you don't know out there watching, the American Speech Language Hearing Association only formally, Jordan, I can see you seething.
Yeah, I'm like,
Only because I know you. Jordan hates it when I give this fast fact, which he has every right to because it is frustrating. But the American Speech Language Hearing Association only officially recognized childhood apraxia speech, as they term it, as an official disorder in 2007. So even for Jason and for Jordan, I mean, people were calling it various things. People did realize, some therapists did realize it was a thing, but there was no agreed upon diagnosis for it. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely in the 90s, it definitely wasn't a thing. So,
Yeah.
so my brother and I missed out on the official diagnosis, but me and him both have talked to a lot of people, gone through testing and assessments ourselves, and it's nice to at least have an answer after all these years of just being told we had accents for no reason. So
yeah, of course it would be. Wow.
And Jordan came to me when
How did you meet him?
to me. Thankfully, Jordan was sent from heaven, I think, and just messaged me one day and said, "Hi, you're the walk coordinator for the Triangle Walk. How can I help?" And I thought to myself, "Oh my God, I have now found a new love of my life." So, and ever since
I
then,
love that. Oh, that's so cool. I remain so impressed with Jordan, and just he inspires me, and I do better, and I am better because of him too. So, Jordan, you really are fulfilling the mission that
Can you stop bragging on me? My head's gonna go like at the end of this. So
you won't be able to fit your head through the door. Okay, we'll try to rein it in. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a more serious topic now, and I think that Jordan and I talk about this all the time. There's no real formal research to show that apraxia and anxiety are a common comorbidity, but as Jordan and I do these panels with young adults, a common theme keeps recurring, and that is that there is a lot of anxiety that comes or may come with apraxia, and I want to speak to that now. So I'm going to start with you, Jason. Did you struggle with anxiety when you were younger or now? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
So for me, I do. So when I go meet a new person, I always wonder in my head, how do you perceive me right now? So making friends for me was kind of hard, but over time I got used to making my friends, just going out and meeting new people. So one of the things I do now is, if someone is going to judge me on my speech, I actually inform them what I have. For example,
awesome.
Since I'm 27, I do go out to the bars. I went to a bar and I got declined for a drink because they thought I was too drunk. But the thing is, little did they know I wasn't. It happened to me about 3 times officially. It happened at one time. I broke down. Broke down because when that happens, I'm not drunk. I'm drinking water right now. My friends are the ones who are messed up. And then that happened the second time. I went to another bar. Same thing happened, but I didn't cry this time. I actually told the bartender, "Hey, by the way, I have speech apraxia." And then after the bar closed, I wrote down on my receipt or my tab to look it up, just because he felt bad. So you know what? Let him know about it. So another anxiety with me in school for college, you have to do a speech class. And I learned from high school, if I wait to go last, I cannot do it. I cannot do it.
Yeah, your anxiety is just building.
Yeah, that's built up tension.
Yeah,
so I feel that too. Yeah.
It sucks. So when I ever give a speech, and when I was in school, I was like, okay, I went to the professor, always offer to go first. And that's the thing, you always have to try and find ways to help your anxiety. And for me, going first, get it done and over with. And breathing helps too. And actually, fun fact, I actually started a new job in March with Flagstar Bank. and I'm in their call center. So I'm on the phone talking to customers every day. And I like, let's say on average, I sometimes get to 170 calls a day.
Oh my gosh.
Or more. Given it takes.
That sounds like a nightmare to me.
It's crazy how customers talk to. I have talked to a couple customers have asked if I was from a foreign country. No, I'm not. I have a speech impediment, and then it's good after that. But that only have happened to me 3 to 2 times.
Wow.
But,
okay.
So it was kind of nice because then it showed me in my head, okay, that is my anxiety speaking, that a lot of people think I speak in a different way. That is my anxiety talking that. So more and more every day at work, I get better at my job. And like, I'm so appreciated for my boss. My boss, shout out to him. He is a great boss.
Wow.
And Lonnie is an amazing human being. He really is.
Yeah.
And I did a coaching with him, I think about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and he gave me the best tips ever. One of the tips he said is just slow down and you will be good. And that's very true. If you just slow down, your speech does get better, and breathe.
Mm-hmm. And that's true of people with, without a speech impediment as well. Because when anyone's feeling anxious, all that anxiety builds and affects your speech. So in different ways. So it does help to breathe and slow down. Jason, what I'm hearing from you is that you advocate for yourself now, and that's really been helpful in kind of overcoming this speech disorder. And I'm also hearing that you faced your fear, because obviously being on a phone, having a phone job would induce anxiety in a lot of people, but especially in someone who has grown up with a speech disorder. And so I find that if people can face their fears like that, it's, there's an acronym to FEAR. You can face everything and run, or face everything and rise. And that's what you've done. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome.
Heather, can we talk about, your anxiety, if you have it, and kind of how that manifests and what you do to help yourself through it?
Yeah. What's funny about this is I'm also like a trained, licensed clinical social worker. So
wow.
I deal with anxiety when it comes to every day, when it comes to my patients. But I think a lot of my anxiety, I've always had a small bit of anxiety, but more when I'm talking to people, more when I'm having to public speak. And it's actually costing me a lot of different positions because of my impediment. I have a slow processing. My apraxia takes more in place where I can't figure out the words to come out correctly. And so it takes me a good few minutes when someone asks me a question to actually respond to them. Because I know that if I respond quickly, it's going to come out all mumbled jumbled and no one's going to understand me. And because of that, people always assumed it was my confidence level, or people always assume that I just didn't know the answer. And I actually did know the answer. It just was taking me a few more minutes than normal to, especially in job interviews, to actually state what the answer was. And so that's unfortunately been my experience, which has caused me a lot of anxiety when it comes to job interviews. I'm currently not working because, unlike Jason, I had a boss who was absolutely horrid to me about my phone conversations and about my speech and not communicating well or effectively. And so I ended up quitting that job and kind of been position to position lately, just trying to get back to where I was, just because one person told me that I couldn't do it with my speech impediments. And so that really put me down. And I think a lot of my anxiety comes from when someone does say you can't do this because you don't respond quickly enough, or you can't do this because you're not communicating enough or well. And so I and this, I can't public speak. Jordan has seen me at my walks. I am a huge hot mess when it comes to having to get up in front of 200 people and thank them for coming and tell them a little bit about myself. I get red in the chest and up and break out in hives, and so I tend to just stay away. But once again, that in my field, that's not a good thing. And so a lot of times I do have to be the one to stand up and speak, and that's costed me a lot of positions. And so I think that finding the right supervisors, the right tribe to support you is probably the most important thing an adult can do in their life with apraxia, because there's not very many resources out there for us. And when I put a lot of my energy in just trying to get my daughter the treatment, it leaves very little time or energy for me to put into myself. And so I think that it's really important that you find your tribe, and you find those people that can really work with you and to make you as comfortable as possible and to give you the ability that you know you have. It's just not coming out the way it should.
I want to touch on a few things you said that are so important. The first one being, Jordan teaches me this all the time, mostly because I talk to him more than a lot of other people with apraxia, but is that I'll think Jordan's go doing really well. I'm like, wow, he's so fluent, he's rocking it, he looks great. And then he's like, so like internally, that was not what was going on. I'm like, really? So like I even get fooled all the time. Yeah. And I think that especially with you, Heather, I could see how that could happen. You seem to be going along well, you're fluent, no one's really perceiving anything. But what I've learned as a speech therapist is I could write down clinically what's going on with you from an outside perspective, but I have no perspective on what's going on inside of you and all of the struggle and maybe potential struggle that you're having internally. And that's why I love doing these panels, because that's why there needs to be awareness. Because even someone like me who is an SLP specializing in it, if I clinically see someone doing really well and being fluent, I'm assuming that they're great, and inside that might not be the case. Mm-hmm. The other thing I wanted to point out is Jason talked about a really supportive employer, and I know Jordan, you can speak to that too. Your first job was at Starbucks, I believe, and you attribute a lot of your success at that position to a really supportive co-workers. I don't know about boss, I'm not sure, but can you speak to that maybe?
Yeah, sure. So it is my boss did not treat me like a different way because of it, and he just made sure that my safety came first, even when there were many things that had went on, like people yelling at me and different things that I can't touch on because of legal reasons, but he just made sure that I felt safe first, and that really helped me actually push through. And so yeah, and I also had supportive co-workers as well that would be like, hey, he has a speech disorder, that's why he's taking a moment to get out his word. So
yeah, like Heather said, finding your tribe like that, that's amazing, and it can be so helpful for someone with this. So Jordan, a lot of people know about your anxiety because I feel like you're pretty public about it and you're a huge mental health advocate. I do know that there was some things you wanted to say about apraxia and anxiety, so go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So it is my main points with this is that many parents who have a child who has apraxia and also has anxiety as well will kind of go under the assumption that the SLP can help with their anxiety, which is not the case because SLPs are not qualified to treat that disorder because they because they are not mental health professionals in that field. Is if your child does have anxiety, then they should be transferred also to a mental health professional while they are in speech as well. So I do think that people need to know that these are separate disorders, but they can, occur at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, a lot of labels get lumped under apraxia, because apraxia can be kind of that first diagnosis that a child might get. And so I think then parents think everything that kind of happens underneath it, they attribute to apraxia. But when we're talking about apraxia, we're solely talking about that difficulty with planning the movements for speech. It's not, that is like, that's the core of it. So anything else might be a comorbidity, but it's not, the apraxia, it's not a symptom of apraxia per se. So. Okay, thank you all so much. It's very vulnerable to share that. So I appreciate all of you being brave and being vulnerable and sharing that part, because I promise you by doing so, you're going to help a lot of people who are watching this. So the last question that we have is, what helped you overcome, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but what helped you overcome difficult obstacles and got you where you were now? I'll start with you, Heather, this time. Or unless you want Jason to go.
No, I can go. Let's see, what got me through difficult obstacles? I think any child with apraxia is probably going to have a pretty high level of obstacles that they're going to have to jump through. Starting from childhood all the way into adulthood. Looking at my daughter, reading is not her strength. Obviously, words are not her strength, and therefore she struggles. Where my brain works a little bit differently. Reading wasn't as big of an issue as much as like the math skills and things like that. And I think that what's really important is that you find she's had teachers that were really, really good with her IEP, and she's had teachers that were not so good with her IEP. And that's kind of where you have to step in and speak up about what you need and what your daughter needs, or child, or anyone else that you're advocating for with this. I think one of my biggest obstacles, as I mentioned, is just jobs. I have struggled maintaining jobs because I haven't felt supported with my apraxia. Phones are hard for me. Pressure is hard for me. If I feel like I'm stressed out, my words go away and I cannot find them, or they come out jumbled, or it sounds like I'm on something or whatever. And so I think that my biggest obstacle really has just been finding my place in this world, as far as what I'm supposed to be doing with my life and what I am able to do. I think because I came into this so late, I'm lost in my mid-30s. So I think that one of my biggest successes really has been when my daughter was diagnosed, I jumped into it head on to figure out what she needed. And along the way, I found out what I was capable of doing. And I think that I would have never 5 years ago thought that I could coordinate a walk with 200 plus people every single year by myself. No way. That would have even came into my head. But when the walk coordinator that year said I'm not doing it anymore and the walk was going to be shut down, I wasn't going to let that happen, because that walk was the only thing that was keeping me supported personally. I probably get more out of that walk than most of those children do every single year. Aww. And so I wasn't about to give it up. So I'm going to figure it out. It's one of those things that I might be figuring out by myself, but I'm going to be figuring it out. And so if this is important to you, if this is something you're passionate about, you're just going to jump in and do it. And what I have found is people that I'm asking for sponsorships for, if people that I'm asking for money for or donations, they want to know why. And that's my opportunity to tell them. And they listen. They listen to my voice. They listen to the words coming out. My daughter is, I bring her along with me so they can also get a sense of what childhood it looks like. Because, you see it more her than you do me. And so, just because I've had to self-teach myself how to talk and how to say words. So, where she's getting the professional help.
I think that that's what Jason and Jordan have said too. In advocating for themselves, they actually found healing, and like people were receptive to it, and it helped them. So I hope you find that too, Heather. I think you're on your way. Jason?
Yes. Heather, you said one thing, how you said you were lost, you feel lost. The thing is, if you really think about it, every human being is lost in a different way. We really are, even people who doesn't have speech apraxia. I have friends who doesn't have a disability who is lost, but in a different way. So you're not alone with that.
No, I'm not.
You are. So don't ever think you're alone with that. But for me, my life was a whirlwind ever since I was a kid. Since I was born with speech apraxia, but also born with a learning disability and Tourette's. And that caused a lot more issues because I'm not the best reader or speller. Slowly getting better over time. But making friends when I was younger was kind of hard because they saw my tics from Tourette's happening. They make fun of my Tourette's, and then they make fun of my voice. And then one of the things with people with apraxia, where I feel like, or they would deal with suicide for sure, because I dealt with it. And I remember in 9th grade, I was going to take my own life, and I know something stopped me in that moment, and don't know what did. But since that day, I have to deal with suicide thoughts now for the rest of my life. Once you have that first thought, it's with you for the rest of your life. And I'm a happy person. I haven't thought about suicide for a long time now. Let me think. Yeah, for a good amount of time. And with me, just growing up, I found what can help me with all my issues, making friends. My friends have helped me through so much. Mm-hmm. And actually, someone who I recently came in my life this past November, my boyfriend, he have helped me through so much already in the past 6 months. Actually, our 6 months anniversary is tomorrow. One of the things he told me to never give up on stuff, and he always sees the good in me, and he understands my issues and how we talk with each other is natural. And one of the things Matt said to me, read every day. And he gave me 2 books. For me, I would try every day. I've been slacking on it. But I did notice when I did read every day, I read out loud, but I read one chapter, but then I will reread that chapter 3 times out loud, just so I can learn new words to hear it more in my head. And when I see a word that I don't know, I will take out my phone and Google the word and try to see how they pronounce the word and pronounce it that way. One of the words I learned was the word charlatan. That's one of the words I learned from a book that I was reading. And the word ib is EBB.
Yep.
So are some of the words I have learned from reading. So thank you, Mia, for that advice. I love him.
Oh.
But he's one of the best support person on the road for me. He helped me through a lot. I can go to him for anything. But what the other stuff that have helped me with
I don't mean to cut you off, but we have less than a minute. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. Is using your phone and technology. Technology will help with this stuff.
Yeah, I feel like we could do a part 2, Jordan. We'll have to see.
We can.
Thank you so much, you guys, for sharing your story. We really hope, especially, you know, I know Jordan and I both hope that, you know, we can, you know, build a community where everyone feels safe and supported who are adults with apraxia now. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye, guys.
Bye. See y'all.
Yeah.